Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Solution Sunday, because the soul is the solution. We are beings of light. There's so much more than what meets the eye. And today we are here with my friend Andrew Wilson. Andrew grew up here in Lake Placid, New York, as an elite skier. And but he's also had some very interesting experiences with astrology and energy and being able to speak with non-physical beings, crazy stuff like that that we all can do, by the way, when we start to tune in. Andrew started tuning in when he was a young kid, and he has been tuning in ever since. So, Andrew, I'm so happy to have you here today.
I am happy to finally be here after a while of moving plans and moving across the country and tuning into myself more. And yeah, it's really good to be here. It's funny you say tuning into other beings and crazy, because most people would be in the insane asylum for saying they could do that, but we're kind of lucky we have a culture around us now that we can find our people and have these conversations like this.
Exactly. We've all been taught that, if it's not physical, then it's not real. And we've been taught that we can't communicate with nature itself. We all have the ability to communicate with plants and with animals and, with the air around us, the water, the planet itself, you know, but we simply don't notice those abilities.
Right. And I think there a lot of people have trouble, I think, maybe these days in the mind. And I'm pretty sure it was Swami Rama who came over here and did a lot of tests during the 90s to kind of prove that, you can regulate your heart with breathing. You can, heat your body up from the inside out. And he astounded scientists from what I've read and understood. And I think one of the wildest things is what he said when he came here. He said, "I've never seen so much mental illness anywhere in the world until I came to the Americas." And I think a lot of that, if you would agree, is that we, as a culture, we kind of suppress those other things that are tickling at our atmosphere just on the outside. And a lot of people do go crazy over it. A lot of people get prescribed things to mute it or stop it. So it's, like I said, it's really cool to have solutions to these kind of things, especially on Sundays, and kind of look at things in a different way and see the world in a different way rather than this and that and this creates that. And it's cool that we have that opportunity to kind of finally open up to this new atmosphere or age of Aquarius or whatever you want to call it. It's cool that we're finally tuning into things. And a while ago, when I first started doing astrology and connecting to spirit in these different ways, I was in college and nobody cared about that. They thought it was weird. They thought it was crazy. And I kind of pushed that aside for a while to develop my own social life, I guess you could say. And coming back to it now, it's like I'm seeing people post things that I was posting 12, 13 years ago, and now it's okay. So it's it's cool to be able to come out and speak again on a shared level with people. And yeah, thanks for facilitating that whole thing too.
Hey, you're very welcome. My pleasure. My experience was kind of weird, being when I was a really, really little girl and I would go to sleep at night, I would just be lying in my bed and I would kind of just drift off and I would just be part of the unified field, just all this huge, vast expanse of light and unconditional love. And I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that's what's real. Like that is permanent. That is forever and always. And from that space, I could look at the earth and I could see like people are doing war and disease and poverty and crime and corruption. And I was like, what is that? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And then I could just look and I could see it was like people were had amnesia. It was like they had completely forgotten that space of light and love. And I knew at 2 and 3 years old, like, if people could just remember this space, we wouldn't have any of these problems because 'cause we'd all just be creating from light and love, and we'd have heaven on earth, and then I would come back into my body and go, "Wow, they're not doing that here," and anybody who talks about it, well, they kind of, you know, meet with some unsavory endings, so obviously it's not okay to talk about these things here. So my life, that was kinda like the setup for my life, and so now, you know, as I lived my life and, it just got worse and worse and worse, living from that space of like, it's not okay to talk about any of this stuff or to know any of this stuff. I ended up getting really physically sick, getting, cancer. And then I
Mm.
realized, like, "Oh my god, like, I need to go back to this space. I need to go back to what I know is actually true. I need to clear out all this other stuff, these other ideas that I'm not okay." And that's the route to my healing. So that was the route that I took and didn't need any pills, didn't need any fancy medical procedures. I just needed to clear out all these misconceptions.
Yeah, and kind of get back in touch with your physical mirror of what you've got going on. And like if you're thinking cancer or so, you just mentioned it's like millions of cells being created with no limit or whatever. And that's like kind of like what you maybe had going on there. And millions, for me, it was millions of thoughts that I couldn't share. And
Oh,
then I went kind of into this weird place in my head where I was kind of paranoid about everything and everyone because I was like, oh, well, he's doing this and she's doing this. I was kind of reading the collective around, and that drove me into a place of just silence for a long time. And I didn't need pills. I didn't need any medicine to do it. I just finally said, you know what? You know what did it actually? I got in trouble at one time, and I got in trouble for something we won't mention, and nothing crazy, but I said, F this, whatever. You know what? I said, I don't care about anything, anybody's thoughts, anybody's perceptions. I'm going to live my truth. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I'm not going to care how it affects people. And, at first it was kind of me preaching and scaring people with these massive, brilliant, crazy alien ideas.
mhm.
And after a while, I tuned more into the empathy and like connecting with people's feelings as well as the thoughts that were going around. And it's cool to be able to share my perspective in a subtle way that doesn't hurt somebody or scare somebody. And if they're ready to cross that bridge, it's cool to be able to meet and shake hands with those people halfway. And yeah, we don't need the medicines, we don't need all that stuff. We're the mirrors. And brings me to astrology, of course, and all those other things. But yeah, we're absolutely a mirror for what's going on inside. And I noticed recently with the moving experience and all that the importance of routines and our physical routines in this world, and our thought routines and our thought patterns, and just getting up in the morning and making your bed, getting up in the morning and opening your eyes, and maybe you'll go as far as saying, wow, I'm really glad I woke up today. Or not everybody's going to go that far, but if you can add those things into your everyday.
That
And
would be pretty radical to wake up in the
yeah.
morning and go, "Wow, another great day in paradise."
Hey, fake it till you make it, I guess, too. But just the small little things in the world that I'm realizing are so absolutely important, just little routines. And I was speaking to my mom about things the other day, and we're talking about the routine thing, and she was like, yeah, but then you feel like you're a slave to these routines that you got to do. And then it's like, well, yeah, but if you agree to them, then that is you. That is your spiral going outwards. That is your life. That's your movements. And one of my friends says he gets up every day. He says he goes to the mirror, he winks at himself and gives him a high five in the mirror. I was like, that's so awesome. Like,
right?
what an endorphin booster, literally on a scientific level, you're releasing endorphins and you're making yourself feel good. You're creating. And it's crazy. I guess they call it yoga or something like that. But
Yeah,
yeah.
like allowing ourselves to feel good. You know, the religions of the world, for the most part, teach us that we're sinners and that, we're not worthy, and, to
Oh
feel
Lord.
good is to be selfish, and, don't ever put yourself first. And, that's kind of
Yeah.
just kind of the overlying truth, quote unquote, throughout the world. And people don't give themselves permission to feel good. But
Yeah. Maybe
that's
we don't
where,
think we have permission either. Everything's been, and here's the conspiracy side of things that I once dove into forever, but people think that, they're told something and then they have to believe it because their grandparents believed it, because their parents believed it. And if you step out of line, God's gonna burn you with a magnifying glass like an ant. And it's like, and people are afraid to break free of that permission to feel good. And
yeah,
so I
exactly.
remember one of the biggest revelations that I've ever experienced was it's okay to feel good. And I'm just bawling my eyes out like, this is okay. And why haven't I thought this is okay? And, there's just such a mass majority of people who follow the not Solution Sunday TV screen. They
Yeah.
follow the other TV screen, and that mass is swinging and swung in all these different ways of how to believe, and those beliefs perpetuate themselves, and then all of a sudden we're in this safe place, I guess, society of not having to deal with your own stuff.
Mm.
I'll try not to swear when I'm on here. I've got a pretty forward going mouth, but but yeah, and
We're all
then
good on
and
this
then
show.
on a ship.
On this
But yeah,
show,
and then
do whatever we
just
want.
it just creates even more things. Like it rebuilds the system that started it. Then you go to somebody for this pill to mask it, and then that industry gets stronger, and then we say no, we can't hang out with Christianity and Muslims and Jews and all this. And it's like, no, they're not doing the same thing. And we're doing it different, and they're bad and they're doing it wrong. And then we have these hate crimes and people in these places that are shooting guns in the air erratically, ready to fight. And little did they know, all three of those religions root from Abraham. They're all Abrahamistic religions. They're all the same principle that went a different direction. And I think it's hilarious. Like, I think the important message of this is spread information, show truths, and show people truth, their own truths, if they don't see it themselves. And that's what I'm very thankful to have met people that try to do that and do that in so many different ways. And yeah, astrology, people do yoga, people show people how to eat properly, show you the science behind it all. And sometimes it takes a lot of science and math to show a strong mind how it adds up so that they can break free of that wall. And it's a tough thing. It's a tough path for sure.
I find when we start to tune in to nature, there are answers and solutions all around us. There's communication all around us. And there's wisdom and information all around us. There's medicine all around us. We're designed to think that medicine comes in a pill. Like, that's not really, medicine is the stuff that soothes the soul and helps us to feel better. And one of the ancient medicines is astrology. It's a language unto itself, and there's so much wisdom that's held in the lights in the sky, and
Mhm,
there's so much that we can learn from it. So
mhm.
what can you tell us about astrology and the medicine and astrology?
Oh, it's all hocus pocus, if you ask me. I'm just kidding. Well, talking just medicine and astrology and really just connecting to your surroundings. I mean, you could do it as simply as, you're having a hard time, just lay down on the ground outside. Look what way is north. Look what way the sun is rising. Look what way is setting. You start to put the world outside of yourself and realize that you're a part of that outside world, and you start to realize where it meets your inside world. So I like I don't even like to call it astrology, even though that's what the tool is called to use. It's more like universal yoga in a lot of ways. Yoga, by definition, is just being in union with what you're doing. As I put my hands forward, I'm in union with what I am doing. And now I'm linking from my mind to my mouth the words that are in union with what I am doing. So just being in union with it all will show you and teach you everything, I believe firmly. A lot of the different native medicines they would find out by watching the plant or watching the animal and learning, when does it rise? Well, it rises in the spring, and this one rises in the spring, this one falls in the winter. And then it's easier for certain animals to be trekked in the winter because of the snow. And then that kind of rides on the whole astrology chart. Well, the springtime is Aries. That's the fire, the action moving forwards. And that's the whole the beginning of life, the childlike livelihood, the childlike mind that says, I want, I'm going to get. And then you can start watching the patterns. It's really a story of the seasons, and what exists in those seasons are possibly and perhaps the medicines for those specific seasons. So, if somebody is really short on their fire energy specifically, well, springtime is one of our first fire energies, Aries time, March 21st on. And then, we go into an earth sign, and then an air sign, and then a water sign. And then we come into our second fire sign. And that's when it's, later in the fall time, when it's fiery and hot and warm. And that's the Leo figure. That's when you have all the self-confidence and the strength and everything, because you've gone through one whole quadrant and another fire or another sign to become more fulfilled. You feel like you're fulfilled in the fall, and everything is kind of coming together, and you've learned new medicines. And then you go into winter, and that's the whole Scorpio. Everything's dying, everything is still, silent. Scorpio resonates with death, rebirth, the power of life itself, the fringe of living and fading at the same time. And that's the powerful conduit behind everything. Behind it's the life force energy is what they call it in every astrology book I've ever looked into. And then even in the upon that winter, once you've kind of faced and have been connected to that death cycle, and then you go through the next water, that's Scorpio, and then the next air, and then you hit the next or earth, and then the next air, and then the next fire sign. That's the Sagittarius, and that's the last fire sign in the chart. And Sagittarius represents wisdom and knowledge and understanding the wisdom of it all. So you've pretty much gone from Aries all the way around to the other end of the triangle into a new fiery point, a new awareness point, where you can start seeing different medicines in that way. And maybe because they were paying close attention during the fall seasons, and the leaves are dropping, the seeds are dropping, maybe they could say, ooh, hang on, that tree just dropped seeds a while ago right before fall, and that tree does this medicine. So then they can go dig that seed up and then maybe offer it as medicine. And just, excuse me, being able to pay attention to the changing of seasons, the directions that you're facing, and what is around you is yoga. It's universal yoga. I could even call what I do yogic astrology or something, but it has nothing to do with the postures and the movements and all that. It's just being in union with everything around. And I think that's one of the strongest things we can do, because eventually, and I don't mean to leap too far into it, but it's very simple. You're probably sitting in a room right now. The sun is outside, and we could look at it on a like a big scale. We could look at it in balance and measures on a big scale, an analogy, or you could look at it as um very living and in your house and in your home. You have walls around your house that could be the Saturn influence, or the physical, the Capricornian structure that was built around you. You can look at the light in your room and say, oh, that's the sun. And you can literally look at the room around you and read your own astrology. My teacher taught me once upon a time, and rest in peace, he was the greatest insight of wisdom I've ever experienced, Seo. And he changed my world. It changed my life. And when he first started trying to get me to shut up enough to teach me what he was trying to say without me interrupting him, he said, Andrew, one day you'll be able to do astrology with a handful of sugar packets. You just throw them out on the table and you read that room and you read those packets. And I was like, this guy's freaking crazy. And one day a lot of things clicked, and I could probably do a sugar packet reading, but not quite there yet. But yeah, it's just, being observant of everything around you, how it's happening. Who was in the birth room when you were born? Astrology goes back to the basic, simple roots. Where were the stars when you were born? And most people look at a sun sign and that's all they know about, really. And we can thank the newspaper about 170 years ago for making that popular and coming out. I think it was like the Pennsylvania newspaper or something. And then people kind of got hooked on that. But most of the time people would look at the star on the horizon or where the moon was, and we've kind of forgotten all those parts, and we've forgotten all those things that make us drive and how that makes us drive. And we've only focused on the one thing, the almighty sun, the one and only God of the sky. And we forgot about all the little pieces that are so important to add up. Because if you're missing and neglecting half of your Mars, or where Mars was in the sky when you're born, or neglecting part of Venus, where Venus was in the sky, those are your masculine and feminine archetypes. Those are the synergies that are part of your physical being. That you neglect them, you start looking for other solutions that aren't solution Sundays. So yeah, that's kind of a ground understanding of the whole yoga astrology thing. I'll let you take it from there.
Well, I mean, so many light bulbs have just like turned on just by listening to what you were saying, as far as because astrology in and of itself is a language that I have never been able to speak or really understood how to communicate in this language. And by you just saying, you start in the fire sign, and then you move to air, earth, water. It was like, oh, this makes absolute total sense to me. Like, all of a sudden, that whole part totally made sense. And then when you're talking about, paying attention to where the archetypes, like the masculine and feminine archetypes are when you're born, it's like, well, we choose, I fully believe that we choose to incarnate when we choose to incarnate, and that it's no accident that we're born at a certain day at a certain time, to certain parents. And so I realize, like, that we as beings, we have things that, we have pasts that are previous to this physical incarnation. And if we have, as the soul, if we have a past that has a bunch of unresolved stuff, well, we come into this lifetime to resolve our stuff.
Mhm.
So if we come in, we choose these archetypes. If we start recognizing our astrology, we can start putting the pieces together and go, oh, we can start seeing the patterns that are playing out in our lives. And we can start to go, wait a second. I'm missing this whole piece over here. So, oh, this is something that I need to work with to bring everything back in balance. Like I just started to understand a little more about how all of that stuff really works.
Yeah, and it's really cool because you start to look at different patterns of things like people born on a full moon. So you have the sun over here and the moon over here, Earth right in the middle. And generally people born on a full moon, if they're male, they tend to relate to their mothers more for some weird reason. It just happens. If they're female, they tend to relate to their fathers more. But either way, it's the same picture. So the moon and the parents, the moon, mother, father, moon, and son, they kind of are on opposite ends. So a lot of times these people will have parents that either don't speak their arguments, but those arguments are felt and put into the child, and then they grow up and then they never speak up because they feel all the tension, but they don't speak up about it. Or if it's a male and the mother is on the moon side here and it's a male, then he probably wants to he just wants to kill his mother because she's probably stepped in. Moon is the nurture, moon is the home and the roots, especially if it's in the fifth house or the fourth house, which is the home. We'll talk about that some other time. If that's there, it's like a double power of that mother and home and nurturing energy. And on these places, these occurrences that people have these charts, the mom will almost fight all the battles before the kid can even pick up the pencil or before they can even pick up the sword. And the mom energy then comes in, and then it makes this kid kind of irresponsible. And then they're living at home for a while, and then they're fighting with their mother and they're resonating more with their father. But little did they know it's the mother that was protecting, and they are supposed to be absorbing that protecting energy. But it's hard for both parties to understand what they're doing. You can see anything in astrology as positive or negative, but once you leave the dualistic mind state, there is no positive, there is no negative. It's just, how is it balancing out? Is my father doing too much? Is he super argumentative to the mom? Okay, then it's like you just start adding these things together and figuring out why they are and where they are connected. And a lot of times it's, the mom does so much work for the kid that she wants to kill the kid eventually, but it's her doing it all for him and being such a protector and a nurturer that it's not able to grow and fulfill itself. And that's why it's important for everybody to understand. That's why it's important for everybody to do astrology. But it's important for everybody to kind of look at things and understand like why they're happening, and maybe see it without emotion so you can kind of understand it in a different perspective, or maybe see it from a couple different ways. Maybe it's this, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's that. And it's so easy to get caught up in your own pattern of your chart or your astrology or your reflection of the world around you. It's so easy, but once we can kind of like look at the different parts of it, then we can kind of see like, oh, duh, like I didn't even realize that's right there in front of me the whole time. And it often is something that's right in front of your face, and it's the hardest thing to come to terms with. A lot of times in astrology, they call it an opposition. Well, in shamanic astrology, I've done a lot of reading and studying of the shamanic astrology in a lot of different ways. Not a certified shamanic astrologer, but I don't know if I want to be. I want to look at a lot of different ways, and I very much so use that as a guidance. But they don't look at these oppositions as opposite. They look at them as polarities, because if you can merge these things, then now you have one full polarity of the chart going on. Whether it's Scorpio and Taurus, or Aries and Libra, the warrior and the diplomat, the mother and the father, there's polarities to these things, and there's never an unbalance really going on. It's just how it's perceived and how it's being reflected back outwards. it is a language very much. There's a lot of words to define the language, but to be able to look at things in that way or mythologically, I think is very important, so that we can kind of play the stories up, and the stories that we've all gone through, stories we've all taken part in throughout the first spring of DNA, carrying on all the collective experiences of every other piece of DNA and bringing it all here. And I think we can all kind of unlock that origin mindset, I guess you could call it. And I think it'd be pretty cool if we did.
Right? When we start to recognize that we are so much more than who we think we are and who we project out into the world, when we start to realize that we're non-physical beings, that inside we are multi-dimensional beings, and physical is like the littlest part of who we are. When we can start expanding out, we can start to go back to the origin consciousness of who
Mm-hmm.
we actually are. And
Yeah, and I
then
think that whole physical thing, like, I think it is a very important one to pay attention. And I think we're all three of these things. And but the physical is kind of like the last part. It's like, oh, now I'm hungry. I should have known that I normally eat at this time. I think it's a great mirror, and we can all exist individually there, but we're all connected and non-physical in so many ways, way before the physical was ever here. And
exactly.
sorry to jump in on you there.
No, no worries. We're all just taught, it's pounded in that, if it's not physical, it's not real. Stop daydreaming, stop talking to those invisible friends of yours. They're not real, and so we stop dreaming, we stop using our third eye, we stop using our imagination because we're told, that's just your imagination. That's not real. Actually, it is very real because it's the tool that we use to see all the other dimensions that are non-physical. Like, you know,
Mm,
so when we start to open back up and we start to get quiet and we start to notice all these other things around us and our connection to the stars, to the earth, to the air, to the fire, to the water, to the plants, to the animals, to, all that is around us, we start to realize that there are all kinds of languages that are being spoken all the time. And
absolutely.
we can tune into all of them, but we have to notice that they're there. And we have to be willing to receive the wisdom from a tree or from the earth herself or from the stars.
Yeah, and let go of that physical construct that everyone so desperately and hardly believes in. And there's days where I'm kind of doing my own thing and I'm not really trying to tune into other things, but I think a lot of shamans along a while back, the real smart peoples, they would sit down with a tree and just kind of open themselves to it long enough to receive their medicine and understand, and then afterwards they'd be like, oh, this tree's an anti-inflammatory. Then you didn't have to mess around and test and trial and error with these poisonous things. And people are always wondering, well, how do they know that this plant does that? Well, because they sit and they listen to the spirit of it. And if we can if you can sit and listen long enough and get out of your own way. I was gonna write a book called Get Your Head Out of Your, and it was just gonna be a bunch of comical things about getting out of the way. And really we're just in our own way. And anybody who wants to, has these driving desires to open their third eyes, well, that's your desire. You've already got a third eye that's open. Get out of your own way and just let be what is. Just stare at the clouds for a minute, stare at a tree for a minute, don't think about anything, feel the wind on your skin for a minute. And doing so, we can unlock everything. We can kind of connect to this next layers and next layers of this oneness awareness with people. And some people, you you can sit and have a full communication conversation with, and they might speak Chinese and you might speak English, and they might not understand each other's language at all, but you could just sit there. And I think kind eyes and a smile go a long way in that beginning language. And then you have like dog whisperers and horse whisperers, but universal conduits are just the whispers and the whisperers.
Yeah.
Um,
It's all about energy. And when we're not taught to tune into the energy. So we're just taught to tune into the TV and tune into the teachers and the preachers and all the messages that are being shot at us all the time. But when we start tuning into the subtle energies,
the real teachers.
they're the real teachers. Exactly.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's like we said earlier, it's hard seeing people in a place of power preaching non-oneness information, I guess. And because we put so much belief in these doctors or whatever, and some people might like, I've got a friend you may know who does some breath work, and I know he had some physical illness going on for a while, and he he cured it with breath work. He it's done, it's gone. And a lot of people are like, I think the fear is there, and the people are kind of afraid of what might happen if they do. Maybe they're afraid of their own growth of power. I know I was for a while. And I mean, I'm not perfect. I don't think anybody's perfect, but I think that fear of your own power is a huge part of it, or fear of destroying everything that you've ever known is a huge part of it. And like, oh no, well, I've worked so hard to gather all this information and now I'm gonna lose it. And I think that just walls people and stops them from being able to go. And I I love the I do I used to just hate on religion in general. I used to just try to show people what was up and be like, you're wrong, check this out. But now it's cool to see there are so many building tools and steps in religion, but to grab onto one thing and define your whole world as one thing, it doesn't work. It doesn't allow for further creation, it doesn't allow for further freedom. And it that one thing is the only thing you can ever do now. And then it's all, well, my thing says that I can't do that thing, so I don't want to try your psychoactive plants. I don't want to do this. I don't want to. And who knows, that could be the one thing that you needed. Whether it's an astrology reading and you go to church and that's sacrilegy, or palm reading, or numerology reading, they're all the same exact thing, just pointing the same direction with different words. And I think if people were able to unlock that, they would reset themselves. It would clean up the kerfuffle. I mean, DirecTV wouldn't have as many hits as Solution Sunday if we did that. And people would like focus on what's real and what really matters. And it's just so hard to, because of our own comforts. I think being comfortable is a hell of a drug.
Boy, but we're so comfortable in our discomfort. We get comfortable in our fear, or following the rules, because the rules, well, they make us comfortable because we're not stepping out of line. But we're
Mhm.
comfortable following the rules, and comfortable doing what everybody else is doing because we're not rocking the boat. But inside we're dying because we're so uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it's funny you said rocking the boat, because I was literally thinking of a George Carlin quote. Well, if you don't rock the boat, you'll get the pancakes or something. And like you follow those rules, you'll get the rewards. And we're so reward and follow oriented that we're afraid to like break the rules, because whatever might happen. I
Exactly, because we're taught that we're going to be punished if we don't follow the rules. It's not that we get rewarded, it's that we don't get punished. and getting rewarded and not getting punished are two completely different things.
What kind of God is all loving, all caring, and yet wants to punish everybody and
Right?
eternally damn them to pain? Like, it doesn't all add up. You can look at each piece by piece, and brings me to the astrology thing. If you look at piece by piece of astrology, you're just going to look at the definition of this and then the definition of this. And if you look at the whole picture, it tells a much different story. It relates with itself, it aspects itself, it talks to the other parts of itself. And I think that's one of the biggest and hardest misconceptions that these overly religious people do. And religion is, I guess, a different thing. I have my own religion. It's called skiing, looking at the stars, having a session and hanging out with the friends once in a while. That's part of my religion. But I guess what I'm trying to say is these people who take the absolute mass majority conscious manipulating religions, and they don't want to mess with things. They don't want to look outside of it, and they don't want to look at the whole picture. There's so much in there about do not kill your neighbor, and then you have two brothers who kill each other, and then it's like, well, why are we not looking at the whole picture? Why are we just looking at the sun sign? Or that's not the whole thing. And nor is astrology, nor, like, you have to you don't have to do anything, but it is beneficial for everyone to look at what language they're using, how they're using that language, and how it connects to all the other languages, because everything is everywhere, everywhere is everything. Pretty sure they even did a study about it with quantum mechanics and quirks and parts, and they said that everything in the universe, all the quantum mechanics and parts of the universe, exist within 1 centimeter, cubic centimeter. So I could be way over there. I could manifest the quantum parts to maybe teleport or maybe shapeshift. I haven't figured all that out yet, but it's all scientifically savvy. It's all, it's all right there. It's all just a couple little pieces adding up to the whole. And I think that goes into the archetypal awareness for sure. Just language before the language, seeing it all where it floats and where it is. And
Yeah, when we
even
start to
crazy.
realize, like, we're not physical beings, like we're not stuck in one location.
Right.
We're pure consciousness. And as consciousness, we are free. We are completely unlimited. We can place our awareness in any location in this star system and in other star systems.
Mm-hmm.
And we can, wherever we are placing our attention, that's where we are in that moment. Just because our body isn't they just because my body's still sitting in this chair, but I'm placing my attention in a different star system in the moment, I'm not physically present in my body. I'm being present in the other star system, to
Right.
just gather information. Like,
Yeah, that reminds me a lot of and it reminds me a lot of these people who just kind of jumped on the train of astral projection. And like I said, our whole body is every star system. It's a complete system. So we are the universe in its own complete system. And I think one of the big things people, maybe some people do, some people don't. I think one of the things they do is, instead of projecting to the universe that's inwards, that is all out there, they literally leave themselves vacant and they go out to wherever they want to. But it's all, you can go out to wherever you want to, just you doing it from within and taking off through you, because
exactly.
you're doing it all through you. And I think that's
Mm.
a really powerful kind of grounding thing that we can do, because then you can come back. You don't have to go through a black hole and through stardust and all this to get back here through the ozone, and you're already there, you're doing it there. And I think it's a powerful thing to be able to see the universe within. And as corny as the words sound, it's the most simple way of putting it. And I had a thought the other night. All language can be spoken, no matter what it is, no matter what you're trying to say or communicate. It can all be spoken, and however it does, just allowing that language to come out and be spoken, whether it's energy healing or talking about science, or trying to translate something that you've discovered within your mind that you can't put to words. It can be spoken, and I think that's a really cool thing. Maybe that was a little off topic, but I do that a lot, so.
I love it. When we go within, the ultimate truth, the more I go inside, the more I tune back into that space in which I am source itself,
Exactly.
right? There's one I am, and we are all that one I am at the core of who we are.
Mm-hmm. And then, what fascinates me is you throw time into the mix, and then everybody's got a different version of that one I am. And there's all these millions, and that is the whole is. And there's these millions of different interpretations and experiences of I am. And once you can get out of the egoic version of I am and be the heart-centered I am, then then we can all validate and understand and love everybody's experience, knowing that that is our experience too. I am that. I am that I am. That's the whole Leo thing, is just coming into merge with the one consciousness. And I am that. I am that. I am that. And you throw time into the mix, you can see all the different versions of it. I was born in the winter. The sun was probably, it was in Scorpio area. Other people were born in the spring, in the Aries or Taurus areas. So just seeing that and like being able to see people from a distance, it's really fun to play with now that I have understood and studied a lot of astrology, but also played with a lot of astrology. I can be like, oh, I bet you they're a Taurus with Saturn opposite or this or that. And it's cool because you're just putting yourself in another spot. And it's a playful, fun Rubik's Cube of language, if you will, that we can appreciate and honor all the different parts of ourselves in so many different ways. And it's funny, like I've done hundreds of readings for people and so many skeptics, but then at the end they're like, how do you know all that? I'm like, I don't, it's just your chart. I'm just reading it. It's like I'm given a teleprompter. I'm just reading how I understand the teleprompter. I don't know all this. It's just how it works. It's like you put 1 + 1 + 2 together. How are you going to read it? You just add it up. um, yeah, so it's a really cool thing to investigate the different mysteries of the world around us and the different archetypes. And whether you're a number person or a shape person or a star person or a yoga person or a food person, find another thing to connect that to, because I could be the philosopher in the ivory tower studying and thinking I know everything, or like Vishnu, he stood on top of the mountains and said, I know everything that's going on below. I know it all. I see all from high above. And then someone comes up to him, forget who it is, and they say, well, Vishnu, have you ever gone and participated in the other things down below? Or do you just see how it works? And then, it's powerful to have multiple connections to things, I think, and broaden our archetypal awareness and our archetypal language so that we can make a bridge so that we can all be together instead of thinking one or the other.
Exactly. Going back to, like everything can be spoken, everything has a language. You've learned to read multiple things, not just astrology charts, but you can read a river, you can read snow. Like you have multiple languages that you read.
Yeah, whitewater rafting and skiing are definitely one of the languages I'll always love. Teaches me the fast pacedness, but even when doing so, the more, even though it's like a class 5 rapid, or I'm going down this crazy hill on skis, the slower I am, the more I can read it. The more I can slow down and watch what's happening, the easier I can flow through that river, or jump over that stick that could have tripped me and killed me, or ski around that tree. And really it goes back to I don't want to use the word as like what a lot of people maybe think of it, but yoga, just being where you are,
Yep.
observing what's around you, putting yourself outside, and then guiding your person through it. It's kind of like old Mario or something, you know? You're just dragging the screen across. You're not moving the character. You're just dragging the screen and moving it around.
You know,
Yeah.
like I loved it when we were whitewater rafting. You were our guide, and
Yeah.
you know, Keith Leon. You all know Keith, and
He's a man.
you know, and your mom who's been on Solution Sunday a couple of times as well, Rachel, and
James and Karen. What
yep,
a boat
yep.
we
Karen will
had.
be coming up again here soon on Solution Sunday. And you know, but one of the things that I really loved about how you described this was like, you know, you pick the line. It's like you see where you want to go and you focus on where it is you read the river, you read how the water is going, and then you pick your path. You know, so
Mhm.
many people just like react to the path and go, "Oh my gosh," you know, and they're not focused ahead. They're not picking, you know, they're trying to avoid the pitfalls, but they're focused on the pitfalls, so they end up in the pitfalls
Right. And
rather
or
than
they're not
focusing.
looking,
Yeah.
yeah, they're not looking downstream. And you know, if I look downstream and I say, tonight I would like to, or in this rapid, I would like to be right there. Well, how do you get there? It doesn't just happen. I mean, our boat just happened. Like we weren't nothing. That just happened because we had some weirdos on board. but
We had
but you
everybody
know,
that could read energy.
yeah. And you know, if I want to make a salmon dinner tonight, I can't just, I mean, some people can just call up Uber or Uber Eats and get their salmon dinner, but you really want to fulfill your circuit with where it is you want to go. You've got to learn how to fish first. You got to, or learn how to shop. That's cheating too, but you know, it works. But learn how to fish, learn how to tie a hook, learn how to gut the fish, learn how to get it home safely, learn how to cook it, learn what spices go with it. You know, you got to look down where you want to go and figure out how to get to that point. And it's not easy, but once you understand the flow of how it works, you know where you don't want to go, and you just point it left or right. You just point it this way or point it that way. It's kind of like a flow chart, you know?
Right? Yeah, you just like stay in the sweet spot that whole time. You know,
Hmm.
the the predominant reality is to scream really loud about the pitfalls and the dangers. Danger, danger, Will Robinson, look out for this, and you better do this to avoid that. And so we're all so distracted by the pitfalls that we forget that we can just create that sweet spot. We can just stay in that space of oneness and well being and trust with our bodies and communication with the universe, with all that's around us. And when we stay in that constant communication with nature, then we're in our true nature, and health and well being and joy and happiness and cool experiences just are the order of the day. And we don't
Hmm.
have to try to run and hide from the pitfalls because we can just simply steer around them.
Yeah. And it's funny you're saying this. I'm thinking of times where it's like, oh, that wind just blew snow in my face because I know I'm making a bad decision. It's just a coincidence. And then we go further down the coincidence, and you know, it's just so much easier to just pick the right path that you know you need to do and feel good. We're supposed to feel good. We're supposed to be happy beings. Love makes it all go around. It
Right?
really does endlessly.
Exactly. For sure.
Absolutely.
You know, and when we learn that astrology, when we look at our chart and we kind of see the setup, it kind of gives us a path down the river. It kind of shows us, where the pitfalls could be, where our weaknesses could be, and it shows us where our strengths are. And it shows us that midpoint in between the polarities, how to find that and wend our way through life.
Absolutely. And that's what, after every reading, I say to people, stand in the center of your chart, pull the things to the center of your chart. This might be across from here, but we're going to balance them in here. This might be over here making a square with here, but we're going to bring them all here and balance them here. And just stay in the center of your chart, of your being, and everything is so much easier to see. You know, it's quite simple, but it's really hard at the same time.
Right?
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, but it's quite simple. It's just pulling it in, just bringing it to the center,
Exactly. It's like
balancing out.
what I think that's just absolutely brilliant wisdom, because when we stay in our own center, then literally everything comes to us. We don't have to go looking for things and trying to avoid things. When we just stay centered and balanced within ourselves, we automatically start drawing in the things that are for our highest good. And we can start to navigate our way down the river saying, hey, I'd like to have that experience over there. And we just start allowing those things to come to us.
And eventually we can help other people get down the river, you know? That's can't do it. You can't help other people if you're still bouncing off of rocks, you know, unless they
Exactly.
learn that way. But yeah, it's
Right? Yeah,
pretty special, pretty cool.
yeah, and you're exactly right.
Absolutely.
It really is just that simple, staying centered and balanced within
Mhm.
yourself. I love it.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Andrew,
I don't know what else you want to talk about here.
this has been such a great conversation. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to add?
I thought it would be kind of funny just to throw in the Christmas story since we're near Christmas. I'll keep it quick.
Awesome.
Uh, So all of our, Christmas traditions and religious traditions, and for the non-believers of the other ancient traditions, it's really funny how many things we're doing now and not looking at where it came from. In a sense, we're ordering Uber Eats without knowing how to fish. And so, the whole Christmas and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Santa dropping gifts down the chimney. This is an ancient Mongolian shaman tradition where in ancient Mongolia, the shaman of the tribe would drive around on a sleigh with reindeer because there was too much snow. The houses and the doors of the place were too covered, so he would have to drop their gifts down the chimney. And oftentimes, this gift was an Amanita muscarita mushroom, which is the red mushroom you've maybe seen on Alice in Wonderland. And the reindeer that would guide the sleigh through the snowstorms was usually the one that was bending down and eating the red mushroom, the red-nosed reindeer. And then, you get into the whole mushroom experience and the shamanic experience behind it all. And then come the elves, and then come all the other little magical, swirly, sparkly things. And I just think that it's really, really cool to look into the things you hold dear and believe in, because generally they existed way before anything you've ever thought about. So there's a little short story on Christmas. I thought it would be fun to end with that and
That
share
is
the true Christmas spirit, share the amanitas.
wow. I love that. I've never heard that story, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And there is so much stigma around these medicines, that the amanitas, I don't think I've never experienced the amanita experience. However, like when we do some of these plant medicines, it really does open the doors to the other realms to allow us to see more of who we truly are.
Right, absolutely. And if you're strong in yourself already, I don't think it could hurt very much if you continue your practices. Just keep on doing your practices and learning more. 100%.
Exactly.
Yeah, Lisa, this was awesome. Got my mind spinning on good things.
Yay.
I'm gonna start doing a lot more astrological stuff in my future here and more talks of things. And I think it's I'm at a good place in the world where I can kind of freely speak to other people and kind of connect with other people. And I'm thankful for you that you're doing that and getting people together on this show, getting people to come into the same oneness, the one-mindedness. And yeah, many thanks and blessings to you for all of that. That's it's awesome what you're doing. You're bringing people together in the best way. I
Uh,
love it.
Thank you so much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be able to do that. So, for anybody who would like to have an astrology reading or connect with you to have conversation, how do they reach out to you and find you?
Um, just got to really tune in and say, man, I want that Andrew guy. um, just emails. I have a cell phone. I'm open to texts and calls. If I don't answer, I can get a message. But my email is astrologyandrew@gmail. That's the easiest way. I'm mostly going to be doing just natal charts, and if people are interested, and if they know about other things, I'm happy to share transit charts, lunar phases, um, uh, I can do the astrocartography charts, which is like showing where the planets go on around the planet and where they hit. Like some people, I know for my mom, she's thinking about doing Italy stuff, and I was like, Mom, you got like 3 rising planets in Italy. Like that's going to be a really powerful move, and so I'm happy to do natal charts. And if you're interested in something else, if you know of other things, I'm happy to do those too. Um, Relationship charts, not my forte. I can do it, but you can make any relationship work. You just got to figure it out. Um, some of them just won't. But yeah, emails work the best, and phone messages work well too. Usually they're about 45 minutes to an hour long, sometimes an hour 20. If you're doing more, they can go on for a while. But I record every session so that you have that forever, because your chart is a blueprint of your origins, your your blueprint of the stars. So that's something that's kind of nice to revisit once in a while. And yeah, I am accessible now.
Oh, we
Took
love
me a while to become accessible again.
that. Yeah, we all have to be able to stand in our own selves and know our own power and feel comfortable and confident within ourselves, and then we can share again
Mhm.
from
And
that.
not preach at people, like
Exactly.
communicate with people. It's so much easier.
Exactly. It all takes us a while to figure those things out. At least I know it did for me.
Likewise. Hey,
Yeah,
well,
Andrew, this has been so great. Thank you so much for coming on and having this great conversation. I hope you'll come back again at some point and have another conversation. So there's all kinds of things I'm sure we can talk about.
yeah, let's do it. Thank you again, Lisa. Have
You
an awesome day, and we will chat soon.
You got it. So if any of you are watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. Let us know that you're watching. Let us, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. I should have said that at the very beginning, but if you have any comments, feel free to leave them. And the Andrew's contact information will be in the show notes. So just feel free to take a look in there. And if you're watching on YouTube, remember to subscribe to my channel and share. If this conversation was helpful to you, please feel free to share it wherever you feel it's appropriate. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you again next week on Solution Sunday. Bye for now.
See you.